Good afternoon. Welcome back to Football League World TV for another week. It's Monday, so that means it can only be time for the weekend review. I'm your host, George Dagless, and joining me this Monday afternoon are Billy Mulley and Ben Wignall. Billy, how are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, good weekend, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Managed to dodge making my cold worse at least. Ben, how you getting on?
Very well. Nice and sunny up north for once, even if it is very cold. It's good time to review the League One and League Two action before we get the Championship back this weekend.
Yeah, certainly plenty to talk about. A few games in League One and lots of League Two action as well. So let's get straight into it and start by talking Plymouth Argyle's win over Burton Albion. Goals from Connor Grant and Ryan Broom sent Plymouth on their way to victory on Saturday. Lucas Aiken's goal for Burton proved academical in the end. Plymouth now sitting top of the League One table. They'll be very pleased about that. Ben, what do you make of Argyle's performance first and foremost? You know, got the job done and looking pretty good in League One now.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit nervy in the second half when Lucas Aikens got that goal midway through. But they're in real solid form at the minute. I think they did it without Jeff as well. He was with Wales under 21, so Kieran Airgod went up top with Ryan Hardy. But it just shows that Ryan Law's got those options that he perhaps maybe didn't have last season through injuries and whatnot. And I think last season was just a real consolidating one after coming up from League Two. They've added a few decent players this summer, and it's proving working out for them. On the strength of the form at the minute, I'd probably say they are promotion contenders. Obviously, it's very early to say, and there's a few teams with games in hand. Obviously, with having internationals in their team, they've not been playing, but I think Plymouth fans and Ryan Law in particular, they'll be delighted with not only the result that occurred on Saturday, but the form that they've been in the last month or so.
Yeah, no, it's certainly good performance for you, Billy. Obviously, you know Ben's mentioned it there. In terms of their promotion credentials, you look at them now. Obviously, they're top of the table with 12 games played. Yes, the teams below have got games in hand, but it's probably fair to say that they are sort of looking like genuine promotion contenders at the moment in the third tier.
Yeah, I think they have to be now. And you just look at what Ben was saying there about not having Jeff and they've got a solid enough option in Kieran Aigard there. So there's depth to that squad. They're obviously a good manager at the helm as well. He hasn't been beyond League One before, but he's proven to be an excellent manager at the top end of the division. We've spoken a lot about sort of the big hitters in the division and when are they going to come good, but Plymouth now, after 12 games, sitting at the top of the league, they've got to be considered as automatic promotion contenders, and it's been an excellent start. But there's no reason why this can't be sustained, and we've seen it before in League One where teams that haven't really been fancied as highly as your Sunderlands, your Portsmouths have actually gone up from the division. So it's interesting to see how and if they can maintain this sort of form, but they definitely have to be considered up there now.
Yeah, certainly got a good mix. Obviously, proving hard to beat, and yes, obviously Jeff was missing at the weekend, but there's goals in that team too, with the likes of him, Ryan Hardy as well. Had a really good start to League One. Ben, just before we move away from this match, let's just look at Burton briefly. They're sitting 10th now after that result. Played 12, won 4, drawn 4, lost 4. I think it's probably fair to say that perhaps they're looking like maybe a team that could challenge for the playoffs, but it's probably most likely that they might be looking at a mid-table finish at the moment.
Yeah, and it's just the nature of League One. It's very strong this season. You know, a lot of teams did a lot of good transfer business in the summer, and Burton are one of those teams. You know, I think the signing of Jebison was an eye-catching one. He's not started firing just yet. I think he's got one goal, but they definitely started the season well. I know at the end of last season they finished it really strongly with Hasselback and getting them away from the relegation zone. So by all means, they're doing pretty well so far. Not sure they'll have enough to get in the playoffs. The results have tailed off a little bit since the first few weeks of the season. I think they're doing all right now. I didn't expect them to win against Plymouth, but I think in the next few weeks it's very symmetrical. They've got 4 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses. So I think a little bit of inconsistency. It might continue, but I don't think they'll be in trouble at the bottom end of the table by the end of the season.
Okay, we will see. what happens there. So Burton sit mid-table, Plymouth, of course, top of League One after that result. Let's move to Wycombe's win over Gillingham. Billy, it was sort of over before it started, really, with goals from McCleary and Hanlon inside the first 10 minutes. Wycombe are very much doing what they, in the last few years when they've been in League One, have been able to do. Obviously, they're second now in the table and looking as though they're going to be, real solid contenders, as Plymouth quite possibly are going to be out near the top end this year.
Yeah, even though they were relegated from the Championship last season, quite a lot of people overlooked them as sort of promotion contenders, and keeping the majority of their squad together. I always thought that, yes, they can sort of kick on and do what they've done 2 seasons back and get promotion to the Championship, and they're proving that at the moment. I think what's key for them at the moment is their form at Adams Park, 5 wins from 5 now, so they've turned that into a fortress. And whilst away from home they haven't been as strong, having that solid base of your home record is crucially important when going for promotion and trying to sort of start very, very brightly, which they have done. As you say there, McCleary and Hanlon getting goals inside 7 minutes, held out very well. Sometimes going 2 goals ahead that early can come as sort of a detriment, but they didn't. They stayed strong against the Gillingham side that do have threat, but obviously not firing at the moment. And I think at the moment you've only got to take what we're talking about there about Plymouth. That it's all pointing towards a top 6 finish at the moment, and I've been impressed from what I've seen from them.
Yeah, certainly looking good. Ben, what have you made of Wycombe so far? I think Billy makes a good point. In many ways, they've sort of gone under the radar, particularly from the start of the season in terms of the conversation for promotion contenders, even though they did come down from the Championship last year. But, as they so often seem to do in League One in the last few seasons, they're, there or thereabouts, and perhaps silencing any sort of critics they might have had.
Yeah, I don't think they've gone as much under the radar this season as previous seasons. Obviously, with that season, the Championship, they ended it very strongly as well. And they perhaps maybe unfortunate not to stay up in the end. But I think a big change this season has been Ainsworth. I think he's been a lot more tactically astute. He's changed a few of the, he's went with, I think, 3 at the back for the first month or so of the season. I think he's reverted to a back 4 at the minute, but it just shows he's got options around the team, and taking away the 2 goal scorers at the weekend, Hanlon and McCleary, you've still got, Vaux, Horgan, even Akin Fenwick can do a job when needed. So they've got a lot of depth all over the pitch, and there's a lot of experience at Championship level as well. And even how, your McCleary's, he's kind of rolling back the years like he was playing for Reading. I know that was in the Championship, but in his mid-30s now, he's hitting the back of the net on a regular basis. And I just think that they've got the summer business wasn't too eye-catching, like, your Wiggins and your Ipswiches, but I just think it was very solid, and Gareth Ainsworth just built a very strong team, and it wouldn't shock me if they were in the automatic conversation at the end of the season, let alone the playoffs.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's a good chance that Wycombe could be right out there. As for Gillingham, what they'd give to be up the other end of the table, they're currently sitting 19th after that result, Billy. They've played more games than pretty much everyone else below them as well. Only Shrewsbury, who obviously played at the weekend too, have played the same amount of games, 12 matches. It's looking pretty tough at Priestfield for Steve Evans and co at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you consider last year was somewhat of a promotion push, they challenged. I don't think they were ever sort of within the top 6, but they would sort of they were close enough to be considered contenders. But this year, it just hasn't really worked out that way. They've struggled for goals. They've struggled for consistency. And I think it's 1 win in 8 now. I know they've played some tough games and against sort of the big hitters in the division. But as we've said before, this division is increasingly tough this year. And those sort of difficult games are going to come more frequently. The problem they're facing at the moment is their record against the top 12 is not good at all, and that's where their concern must be coming from. I think it's 2 points from 6 games against teams in the top 12, which doesn't paint a pretty picture in the context of the whole division. There's there's always something about Steve Evans that you just think that they're never going to be in the actual relegation picture because of sort of his gritty nature and the way he does things around there. So I am concerned for them, but in a relegation dogfight, I'd back them under Evans to do what they need to get sort of steer clear of it, actually.
Okay, we will see how they get on in the weeks ahead. One final game to talk about in League One before we move on to League Two, and that's Sheffield Wednesday's win over Bolton. It was Lee Gregory who proved the difference for Sheffield Wednesday against the Trotters on Saturday. That result leaves the Owls in 9th, level on points now with Wanderers, but Wednesday do have a game in hand. Ben, what do you make of the performance from the Owls at Hillsborough?
Well, firstly, I think a lot of people got this one wrong. As obviously Bolton's away form going into this was very strong, and Sheffield Wednesday's Hillsborough form wasn't anything great. But I think this is what we expected to see at the start of the season for Sheffield Wednesday, and what we did see. They were very hard to beat. They were just getting wins by 1 or 2 goals, not conceding goals. I think it's when they've got the fans at Hillsborough behind them, we expect them to, grind out these wins, and that's what happened. It doesn't seem like it was a game full of quality. There was only 3 shots on target between the two teams, and Sheffield Wednesday had 2 of them. And they had to soak up a lot of pressure. I think Bolton had a lot of the ball. I think it was 64% or something like that. So they're happy for Bolton to keep it and do practically nothing with it. But just think Sheffield Wednesday, they've got a lot of depth in that squad, like a few teams in this league have. I think Darren Moore just needs to settle on a consistent 11 for now, and I think the results will start to come. Obviously, with Gregory getting on the score sheet, he's the player that can fire around 15, 20 goals if he's on form. So I think it was an important win for Sheffield Wednesday to get, because obviously they lost last week against Oxford in the last minute at home, and that would have been a real sickness on it. To get back to winning ways, especially against a strong team, it'll only breed confidence.
Certainly will. Certainly was a good result for Sheffield Wednesday. One other result to tell you about, just briefly, in League One was Ipswich's 2-1 win over Shrewsbury Town. A good win for the men from Portland Road, but obviously leaves Shrewsbury very much down near the bottom of the League One table. Right, that rounds out our third tier chat. Let's talk League Two. And we'll start with Swindon's away win at Forest Green Rovers, a 2-0 victory for Robbins, McCurdy and Simpson with the goals. I think it's fair to say, Billy, that's quite possibly the most impressive result of the entire weekend, or at least, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's a surprise result, but given the context that Forest Green were top of the division at that point, and Swindon have gone there and scored twice and not conceded, that's quite a surprising thing. But I think Swindon are an excellent League Two outfit. They recruited well over the summer. They've got brilliant players in Payne, in Tyrese. Is it Tyrese Simpson? It is up top. Yeah. Scored. Harry McCurdy as well. They've got a very strong squad. Some young players in there that are performing really well and using the experience of others to basically form a very good working outfit at the moment. And to go to Forest Green, who have been exceptional so far this season, and not concede, let alone score twice, is some going. And I think that speaks a lot about their promotion credentials as well. They've got a good manager as well, and Ben Garner trying to play football the right way. And yeah, I think we've said this a lot about a lot of teams that we've spoken about so far, but they are genuine promotion contenders, because not many teams will go to Forest Green and do anything remotely close to that.
I think what was impressive as well, Ben, was the fact that Swindon kept a clean sheet. Swindon have been very good defensively so far this season. I've conceded 8 goals so far in League Two. Obviously, Forest Green have been real free-flowing in attack. So, the way Swindon sort of kept Forest Green at bay for much of that game has got to deserve a lot of credit, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think Lewis Ward in between the sticks, he seemed to have a very good game. And obviously, in the last minute, Forest Green got that penalty, which could have threatened the clean sheet, but it was a very good save to keep that clean sheet. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for keeping one of the, not just in League Two, but one of the best goal scoring sides in the EFL at bay. Ben Garner, obviously, I think there's a lot of there was question marks over his appointment because he didn't do very well at Bristol Rovers, which was his first senior head coach job. But he's got a good squad behind him. The likes of Anthony Grant, Payne, Gladwin have all played at a higher level. Johnny Williams as well. So I think that he's getting them up to third now after a bit of an inconsistent start to the season. I think it's where they deserve to be, and it's somewhere where you wouldn't be surprised to see him at the end of the season if they keep getting results like this.
Certainly will. Certainly a good result for Swindon at Forest Green. Let's move away from that game. Let's talk Bristol Rovers against Carlisle United. Win for Rovers, winning 3-0 at home to Carlisle, but the main story to come from that has to be on the United side. Chris Beech no longer the Carlisle manager. 4 losses in his last 6 and 3 straight. That means he's paid for it with his job. Billy, are you particularly surprised by this move from Carlisle?
Not really. It wouldn't have surprised me if he got a little bit more time, but it seemed that the performance levels as well as the results weren't there, and it seems early to do it, but probably the right time. I think we've seen a lot of managers sort of ride their time out already in this EFL season, and Carlisle here are probably being proactive more than anything. As you say, it's 1 point from 15, and that 1 point was against Scunthorpe, who have been dreadful this year. So something has to change with Carlisle, because they're a team that you do associate with knocking around sort of the playoff positions, within the playoff positions as well in the past. So I can see why. In terms of the kind of manager they need to bring in, it's sort of a toss-up between, do they need somebody to come and sort of steer the ship and sort of guide them to where they have been in the past, or do they take a punt on a younger manager with sort of that progressive style to coaching? Really, it's something that 50-50 really. Don't really know what way they should go, but at the same time, it's an interesting project. They've still got a strong enough squad, and they've always been knocking around there because they can attract those players at Carlisle, and it's just interesting to see what will happen now, because I never really expect Carlisle to be knocking around the bottom sort of places. So it's a big project in hand, but something that I think would appeal to quite a few people.
22nd in League Two currently, Carlisle. Ben, which way do you think they should go in terms of management? Should they take a punt on someone new, a fresh face that perhaps hasn't had their chance, at this level before, or maybe they need to go for a safer pair of hands given their, precarious position?
Not sure. It depends who who wants to work with the board, because I think Beech got dealt a little bit of a rough hand this summer. They lost Aaron Hayden to Wrexham and George Tanner to Bristol City, 2 of the key players, and I don't really think they were replaced adequately enough for the money they got in. I think they brought in a young lad from Arsenal who's not played that much, and Kelvin Mellor, who's experienced, but they could have perhaps got a better player in there. But I think anyone who comes into Carlisle, it's going to be a bit of a tough challenge. You've still got some good players in there. Zach Clough's been at championship level. John Mellish was very much in form last season. So I think maybe they just need a bit of an experienced hand until the end of the season, perhaps. And if they stay up, look at it again. We've seen a lot of teams go for, like Billy said, a progressive kind of manager where, coming from like a Premier League under 23 system and whatnot. I don't think Carlisle need that just yet. Beech was kind of like that. He was coaching at the likes of Rochdale before he went to Carlisle. So I think maybe an experienced hand. I couldn't throw you a name out there just yet. It's not thought about it too much. Maybe like don't know if he goes to Carlisle, maybe like an Ian Holloway if he wants to get back into football. I know it didn't go too well for him at Grimsby. But I think maybe someone like him could try and arrest the slide. Definitely need, I think, a bit of experience at the minute, and then address it at the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with you two, though. I do think there's enough potential and talent in that team to get away from 22nd. They just need to make the right appointment. As for Bristol Rovers, leaves them 16th in League Two. They'll be looking to climb further up in the weeks to come. Up next, we're going to talk Sutton United's entertaining victory over Port Vale. They won 4-3, Kobe Rowe getting the late winner. Billy, what do you make of that one? I think a few Sutton fans there their pulse rates have been considerably higher than is normal at 5 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. It was a brilliant game and a brilliant advert for League Two football, really. Two sides that are banging form, as we were saying on the preview show. Something had to give, and it was just a brilliant game that I don't think anybody's seen the sort of entertainment factor come in, but it happened, and 2 late goals in the end won it for Sutton. I said in the preview show as well, if Sutton do come out and win this, then they've got to be considered as genuine promotion contenders. And yeah, I think I've got to stick with that now, because they are looking very, very solid, and 5 wins in 6 now. I think it's 10 goals in 3 games. So it's a lot's going right there. And I think what we said at the start of the season was that they were getting unlucky, and sort of that good form was around the corner. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I think the fact that they've been on this run now might perk up the other teams that they come against, might see Sutton as the team that we need to go and stop their sort of record, and that'll be that extra incentive to go and get a result there. But to beat Port Vale, who have been really, really promising so far, is a big statement, and also another indication that they can do really well this season.
Yeah, certainly looking good for Sutton. They seem to have, picked up that momentum that they would have taken from promotion. 3 wins on the spin for them, sitting 7th, game in hand on everyone above them as well, and just 2 points off of the top 3. As for Port Vale, Ben, they were leading on more than one occasion on Saturday, but have ultimately come away with no points. It's not been a bad start at all for them this year. They're still sitting firmly in the playoff places, but that's a trait they're not going to want to keep, is it? Being able to get in front and then throw it away on more than one occasion, and then lose the game ultimately as well.
Yeah, and I think a few of the goals as well were their own downfall. Like I think the Garrity own goal was pretty unfortunate. It just seemed to bounce off the wrong part of his head and go in the back of the net. But they're showing enough going forward. Like they've got a lot of firepower. James Wilson playing in League Two. It was a good signing in the summer. Just need to fix up, conceding those sloppy goals. They've got good players in defence, so I don't think they should have any problems in the long run. Just think they'll be a bit frustrated losing that in the last minute. I know Darryl Clark was particularly fuming at the second goal. I think they thought it should have been a throw into them rather than Sutton in a dangerous position, and it cost them in the end. I think that was at 2-2 at the time. But I think they should be fine. I think it was Sutton's momentum, I think, just carried them over the line. I believe that I was the only one out of the 3 on Friday who predicted a Sutton win, so I'm gloating a little bit like
that. I knew you'd remember that.
I think I only predicted a 1-0 though, so it was it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, no, you definitely aced that one, to be fair, but we won't talk about the ones you got wrong. We'll move away from that. No, really good result for Sutton United at home at the weekend against Port Vale. One final game to talk about in depth from League Two, and that's Harrogate's Heavy Win over Scunthorpe United. And in fairness to us, Ben, we all predicted a Harrogate win on Friday, so we all got this one right. A win it was for Town, 6-1 over Scunthorpe. We'll get to Scunthorpe in a minute and their continued woes, but let's talk Harrogate first of all, Billy. A number of impressive performances, as you would expect, in a 6-1 win. I think for me, the likes of Jack Muldoon and Alex Patterson stood out most of all. It was just a really impressive performance from them, wasn't it?
Yeah. As you say, another statement result, really. A game that shows that Harrogate are here to be promotion contenders, that they're not just having a good start. They're going to continue this. I know Scunthorpe are not the best of opposition at the moment. They've got their own troubles. They're sitting at the bottom of the table. But to beat anybody in this division 6-1 is a big, big statement, and another indication as to why they can be very, very confident for what remains of this season. As you said, there, Patterson and Muldoon putting in good performances, but Jack Diamond as well. He's come into the side and come into sort of an older, more experienced side, and has been that sort of flair player, younger player that's got all the confidence in the world. And it's quite enjoyable watching his performances at the moment, because he's fearless and he's got a point to prove. And he's doing that really, really well at the moment. No one really wants to be playing Harrogate. They've played some tough teams already, and they've come through the other end of it. So it's been very, very impressive watching how they progress so far, and deserving of their second place.
Yeah, now just a 1 point behind Forest Green after Forest Green obviously lost home to Swindon this weekend. Top goal scorers in the league as well. Now Harrogate after that result, as you might expect. Ben, let's just talk Scunthorpe before we round up the show. Conceded more goals than anyone else now. 23 they've shipped in. Another bad defeat and 5-0 down as well at half time. I mean, few would have expected them to win this game, but that you would have hoped to have seen a little bit more sort of fight and battle from them, but the game was over within sort of 15 minutes, wasn't it, of kickoff? So, real concern for the Iron right now.
Yeah, well, I think I said on Friday when we previewed this, I picked out Scunthorpe as the losers of the transfer window back at the start of September, and I think it's just showing now the squad's just not strong enough. I think a lot of people probably worried about the recruitment and whatnot, and it's just proving to be a bit of a downward spiral. Listen, I read a few comments after when the game was going on Saturday, and I think the owner, Peter Swan, he said a few weeks back they need to probably lower their expectations of fans. But I think there's a lot of unrest now, and I don't think it's all to do with Neil Cox, the manager. I think it's probably comes from the board as well, and probably cutting back on, they've had decent squads over the years, when they've been in League One, but it does feel like it's only going one way, as we touched on Friday, and it was a tough game for him to go into with Harrogate being in such good form and scoring for fun. It went the way we all expected, but it is a bit of a sad time for him at the minute, considering that it was only like 10 years ago they were in the Championship, kind of punching above the weight. So it would be a shame to see him drop out of the league. I know there's still a long way to go, but it just doesn't look good for him at the minute.
No, it certainly doesn't. Bottom of the league at the moment, as you say, it's not going to get any easier for them as well. They've got Forest Green coming up this weekend, and obviously Rovers will be looking to respond after their defeat at home to Swindon. Let's get to the final goodbye then of the show. Billy, Ben, thank you very much for joining me this Monday afternoon. People at home, wherever you've been watching, do subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can, Football League World TV. Be greatly appreciated. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. We'll be back tomorrow with plenty more shows and plenty more for the rest of this week. But from us here, it's bye.